Hello, my beautiful soul family. Welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited for today's video. It is episode 3 in my abusive relationship testimony series. So if you haven't watched the first 2, be sure to go back and watch those first, as these videos do tend to build on each other a little bit. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the lessons I learned from being in a verbally, emotionally, and mentally abusive relationship. And I share these things with the hope of educating people who have gone through a similar journey, or to really prevent people from making the same mistakes that I have. Because while I don't regret this relationship, there were a lot of hard times and a lot of things that I really learned from it. And if I can help somebody to avoid making the same choices and mistakes I did, then honestly, it will all be worth something. So number 1, jumping right into it, this was definitely the biggest, I think, and most important lesson I learned throughout this relationship. And that is, we cannot heal people in any way. We cannot heal them with our love. We cannot do enough or be enough for them, nor is it our responsibility for their healing. More or less, we cannot heal people. And I did not know that. I was young in this relationship. I was wounded. I had my own traumas, my own issues. Again, be sure to check the first video out if you're curious about that. But I thought that I could truly love my ex to the point where he would heal. He would be able to process his trauma and work on his own stuff and become the partner that I knew he had the potential to be. But that is literally not how life works. Yes, we can support our loved ones. Yes, we can do certain things for them and be there for them in certain ways, but each person's healing journey truly comes down to their own desire to do so. And my ex didn't really want to heal himself, or he didn't have the capacity to do it. He definitely didn't have the tools to do it. And so I was just kind of spinning my wheels, because at the end of the day, everything I did for him, it was not enough for him to actually work on himself. Which leads me to point number 2, or lesson number 2, is that people have to want to heal themselves for themselves, not for other people. As I said before, my ex didn't really actually want to heal himself, but he would sometimes, in very small increments or ways, work on himself, try to heal himself for me. He would try to be better for me. And that would never work. That was never sustaining. Because like anything in life, whether it is a career you're going after or inner work you're doing, if you are doing it for somebody else, if you are doing it for the people around you, your parents, your significant other, your friends, whoever, it is not going to work. It is not going to last, because if you are doing it for the external world, it is not going to sustain you. And honestly, it brought up a lot of resentment in my own relationship. And my ex would throw it back in my face and would say, I'm doing this for you. Like, why can't I be good enough for you? I'm doing this for you. I'm like, I don't want you to do it for me. I want you to do it for yourself. But my ex did not value himself. He did not love himself, just like I didn't value or love myself. And so it was, again, like I said, never a lasting thing, because he didn't believe he was worthy of healing. He was afraid to face what he had walked through, with very understanding reasons why. But again, at the end of the day, it did not work. And his PTSD would just, I don't want to say relapse, that's probably not the right term, but it would often come back worse than it had before, after the short amount of time that he had been trying to work on things and heal himself, because again, his energy was directed in the wrong place. People have to want to heal themselves for themselves. And the effects of them healing themselves with the other relationships in their life, that is just the cherry on top. You can't say, oh, I'm going to be better for this person. Be better for yourself first, and the rest will follow. And ultimately, I couldn't force my ex to heal himself, because he didn't want to. And so that created so many problems in our relationship, as I talked about in the other video. The next lesson I learned is to love yourself so deeply and be content in yourself so deeply, and also be content in Jesus, have a relationship with the Lord before you start even dating on a casual level. I did not do this. See, we're born with a void in our souls that only God can fill. But the world tells us that we can fill this with a plethora of things, with external relationships, dopamine fixes or sensory experiences, things like money and success and worldly values, or even travel. See, the things that I was using to fill this hole were mainly relationships, but also things like binge eating, binge watching TV, or more external experiences like traveling or going to music festivals. Again, things that I thought would bring me joy and peace and contentment and fulfillment, but always left me feeling even emptier than when I started. And also things like relationships, romantic relationships that I would look to fill the void of not feeling good enough, of not having that self-worth and value. And I would seek the external people in my life, or relationships in my life, I should say, to tell me how valuable I was, to show me my value and my worth. And again, that never worked. That was never sustaining. And so I would always end up feeling even worse every time I got out of a relationship, especially with this last one with my ex. My self-worth and my value was so low, and I literally hated myself. I had to work on that for years because of the abuse and the mistreatment by my ex, and me constantly trying to get him to see my worth and my value so I would believe it. Because of this really unhealthy, toxic, not cycle, but just habit that I had, I really was in a low place after I got out of my last relationship. And it took years of therapy and years of walking with the Lord for me to actually learn who God says I am, and to actually love and value myself, and to choose myself before I choose anyone else. And yes, God is a piece of this equation. I would not be where I am today without the Lord, without Jesus, without choosing to step into a relationship with God instead of choosing to step into another relationship with a human being. God is always waiting for you to choose him, but he will never force your hand. And choosing him was the best thing that I ever did for myself, because his love taught me how to love others. And I will talk about that later in this video. And number 4, your energy attracts like energy. See, as humans, we all operate on a vibrational frequency level. So we are sending out energy on this frequency level, on a subconscious level, whether we know it or not. So some people are really attuned. Some people are really sensitive to this. I call them empaths, people who can literally sense and feel and absorb other people's energy, and other people are totally blocked off to it. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay, but it is still a real thing. And this relationship, again, was the last relationship in multiple relationships that actually proved this theory to me. See, if you have low self-esteem and low self-worth, you're going to attract somebody who has even lower self-esteem and lower self-worth, or you're going to attract somebody who sees your value and takes advantage of that because you don't actually see it yourself. And they will reap the benefits that you bring to the relationship, or that the benefits of who you are as a person that you don't even recognize that you have. If you have no boundaries, you will attract somebody who doesn't respect your boundaries and who you end up people pleasing and bending over backwards for. And again, somebody who takes advantage of you. On the other end of the spectrum, if you are a avoidant attachment person, then you will continuously be stuck in loops where you are attracting people who are anxiously attached and who want more from you, and who end up kind of driving you away. And then you feel guilty, or you feel whatever you're feeling about it, or you continue to attract equally avoidant people. And so you never can reach that level of intimacy that you actually crave, that you actually desire, that you're actually built for, because you can't break down the barriers within yourself or the other person, because it's like both of you are up against a wall. Does this make sense? I hope it makes sense, because honestly, in my life, it has been a living testimony to this theory. Because once I started working on myself, after I broke up with this abusive ex-boyfriend, I started working on myself, healing my trauma, really being honest that I was the common denominator in my past relationships, because I was attracting the same kind of underdog, troubled, abusive type of person. On some level, my relationships have had mistreatment in them. Once I realized that I was the common denominator, I took a good hard look at myself and I started working on myself, combined with my relationship with God, where God's love overwhelmed me and changed my life on such a radical level and taught me how to love myself and value myself. Those two things combined together, I was able to shift my energy. I was able to understand who I am as a person, what I stand for, what I want in a partner, and what I won't put up with. And since then, as I've started to date again, I am no longer attracting the same kind of person. It is actually insane how different the men I have been attracting are compared to who I was attracting in the past and who I'm attracted to. I can see through the whole like fuck boy bullshit in 5 minutes. My red flag meter is so sensitive. So if I am feeling uncomfortable in any sort of way, I can easily walk away from that because I know that if it is not in alignment for me, then it's literally not for me. And again, this is a very important note. You do not deserve to be treated badly just because you keep attracting shitty people. Let me make that clear. I am not condoning abuse. I am not saying it's your fault because you keep attracting the same kind of man. That is not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is you will continue to repeat the same patterns and cycles in unhealthy relationships by attracting the same kind of person over and over and over again who will treat you like shit, who will abuse you if you do not learn how to love yourself, accept yourself, heal yourself, and pursue a relationship with God first. If you do not learn how to be content in who you are and stop seeking external validation, or if you do not learn how to become a little bit more open and vulnerable and stop running away, then you were just going to keep doing that over and over and over again, and you are not going to be fulfilled in your relationships. Okay, moving on. So number 5 is abuse of any kind is still abuse. You might be thinking, well, duh, Claire, obviously. But to me, it wasn't so obvious because in my relationship, I thought because he wasn't hitting me, he wasn't doing anything physical to me, I thought that it was okay, or rather, I thought it was part of the package deal with him. I thought that his yelling and breaking things and calling me names and being really horrible to me was part of his PTSD mental health condition that he struggled with, because he told me it was. He conditioned me to believe that that was just part of him. That was just who he was. He couldn't control it. He didn't know what he was doing when the flashbacks were going on. And again, I go into this in more detail in my other video, so be sure to check it out if you're confused about what I'm talking about. And so I just, again, thought it was part of loving this person, but it wasn't okay. And the way he was treating me was abusive. And that is just the matter of the fact. So really the biggest lesson with this is make sure to educate yourself on what mistreatment and abuse looks like and what you are okay and not okay with, because people grow up in different homes. You might have grown up in a home where everybody yells all the time and you think that's normal and that's how you react when you're triggered, and you don't think that that's a big deal if people treat you that way or if you treat others that way, and that might be fine for you. Who am I to say it's not fine for you? But for me, that was abusive. That was not okay. And so as a young person in my early 20s, again, I was easily influenced, looking for love in the wrong places, really unhappy with myself. So when I found somebody who made me feel special, who made me feel like, or somebody who was kind of meeting the need that I have to feel special, I ignored all the rest until we had already trauma bonded. And then he was abusing me. And I was like, oh, this is just part of it. I need to try harder and do better to not trigger him and not upset him because he can't control it. And that whole misguided outlook was why I got stuck in this situation in the first place, and why it took me so long to get out of it, and why I was in it for years. So if you can avoid this, please do. Get really clear on how it makes you feel when people yell at you or push you around or call you names, or if it's called negging. Not nagging, negging. It's something that narcissistic and misogynistic men do, where they act like it's like playful and fun, but they're cutting you under the skin. They are trying to bring you down and make you feel less about yourself, because that's just what they do. And so recognize the signs. Be really clear on what you will put up with and what you won't put up with before you get into a relationship. Because again, as a woman in my early 20s, I was like, oh, well, he's really cute and we go so deep together emotionally. And yeah, he's making me feel special. And I just overlooked all of these red flags, like from the fact that his life was just a mess, honestly, no judgment, but it was a mess when I met him, to the fact that he had a really bad temper and was easily triggered. Like those should have been red light, blaring warning signs to get the frick out of there. But I didn't. I stayed. I was uneducated. And now I'm making this video so I can educate you. So yeah, the final note is to just have really clear boundaries. Have a really clear list of standards, boundaries, again, red flags, what you will put up with, what you won't put up with, deal breakers, so that you can walk away if they cross any of those lines. Because at this point, for myself, I have told myself if a man ever raises his voice at me again, I will be done. There won't be a second chance because I believe that I deserve better than that. I know how I want to be treated. And if he gets so angry and that he cannot control his volume on his voice and he takes it out on me, that makes me feel unsafe. And I don't want to be with somebody who makes me feel unsafe. I don't want to be with a man who does not know how to handle his emotions. That is not a safe person. That is not a supportive partnership that I am looking for. And so I'm willing to walk away. And that's kind of my final point in this specific lesson is you need to get so clear or be so sure of yourself and content again in yourself, in Jesus, that if somebody is treating you a way that you don't want to be treated, that makes you feel unsafe, uncomfortable, less than, it is okay that for you to walk away, and you're going to be okay to walk away because you know and you believe that God has somebody better for you. And if somebody isn't right for you, then they are just clearing the way for the person who is. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox and keep moving on. So kind of going off of the last point is be really crystal clear on what you are looking for in a partner. When I was in my early 20s, when I was in these relationships, I had no idea what I was looking for in a partner. Like I've said before, it was like if they made me feel special, if we could go really deep on an emotional, mental, spiritual connection really quickly, and if they had like dark hair and dark facial hair. And with this lesson, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you, whether you are in your 20s or you are 80 years old and you are starting to date, get crystal clear on your standards for what you want in a partner. Again, your boundaries, your red flags, your deal breakers, and get crystal clear on what you are looking for so that when you start dating, you have something to refer to and remind yourself of so you don't get caught up in limerence, in lust, and infatuation. If they're love bombing you and you start getting sucked in to this idea of them, or you start getting attached to their potential or attached to all these other things, if they check kind of the surface level boxes, but they don't have the underlying stuff that you really need, have this as an anchor so you can come back to it and snap yourself out of it to realize this person isn't for you. And your standards will probably change. I know, again, when I was 20 versus now, who I'm looking for and what I'm attracted to, the qualities I'm attracted to are completely different. And no matter where you're at in your life, just have a list of 3 to 5 non-negotiables. Because that's the other thing. You don't want to get so picky that you have a list of 50 things that this person must hit. And if they don't hit it, then they're not good enough for you. Because I kind of swung to the opposite end of the spectrum during my healing journey. I had this massive list, and with God's guidance through prayer and meditation and really taking the time to think about this, again, before I started dating, I was not talking to anybody at this point. We were able to go through this list together with the Lord's guidance, with the Holy Spirit, and get really clear on things that might have been a little shallow, surface level, things that aren't actually that important, things that I would still like to have, but again, aren't deal breakers, that sort of thing. And we were able to narrow down the list based on who I am and what I'm looking for. And again, with God's guidance, 3 to 5 things that are truly like the core stuff that I really feel I need in a relationship. And so now I kind of have this blueprint that will, again, maybe change. you have to be open to wiggle room, because you might find that some things you think are really important to you aren't actually so important to you. And that's okay. Again, things might change, or vice versa. You might add something onto the list that you didn't even think of before after dating someone or going on a few different dates with people. So just having this blueprint, having this anchor, again, will keep you safe. It will keep you happy. It will protect your heart from getting attached to people who aren't right for you. And yeah, it will just help you in your journey of finding your partner. And I know that if I had this sort of list back then, I probably wouldn't have ended up in a relationship with any of the guys I dated, if I'm being completely honest. And finally, number 8, or is it number 7? Whatever. Prioritize your relationship with God first and let Him lead your life and let Him bring you your partner. When you decide to trust God, He will lead you to the person who is actually meant for you. Somebody you have capacity for, somebody who is your equal. This is what happens when you trust God to guide your life, and when you stop searching for the right person, or I don't know, giving people a chance who are just not in alignment with you. When you trust God to take charge of your life and all parts of your life, including your relationships, He is not going to let you keep going in these same unhealthy cycles. And He's going to lead you to somebody who is actually loving and kind and treats you the way that you deserve to be treated. And that's why this is so important and such a big lesson, because if I had been following God's guidance back then, if I had been in a relationship with God and was prioritizing that over my external worldly relationships, I would have avoided this relationship. Honestly, I know I would have. Or maybe I wouldn't have gone so far. I wouldn't have gone on for years with this person. I know that if God was guiding me and I was actually listening to Him and following Him, following His guidance, doing what He was telling me to do, I could have avoided the pain and the heartbreak and the abuse and feeling like I had put so much time and energy into this person who, like I said before, didn't really want to get better and didn't actually want to work on himself, and who avoided his problems and who took everything out on me. So now, because I learned all of this, God's love has made me complete. All these years of healing and working on myself, God has made me complete in myself and in Him. I'm no longer seeking external validation in relationships or worldly experiences. I'm no longer looking to other people to tell me who I am and if I'm good enough or not. I already know I'm enough. I already know that I don't have to bend over backwards or give my entire heart and soul and pour my whole life into somebody, because that's actually not healthy. I am good enough by myself, for myself, and I am good enough for God. And that is actually the only thing that matters. And no, I am not in a relationship right now. I actually haven't been in a relationship since I broke up with this person years ago. And I am more content and more at peace than I have ever been because of the love of God. And that's the final note, is God's love has taught me how to love well. God's love has taught me how to receive love, how I should be loved, how I should be treated, and again, how I should treat myself and other people. That's the amazing thing about the Lord. That's the amazing thing about accepting Jesus, is it can impact you on such a deep spiritual heart level when you let His love fill that void in your soul. All right, friends, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This was a really fun one to make. And these are the main lessons that I learned from this relationship, but I feel like there's probably more. I might do a part 2, part 3. I don't know. This could be a whole mini series within this series, but I'm going to end it here for now today. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Drop a comment if it resonated with you, or share it with your friend. And if you're not already subscribed, be sure to subscribe to join this little soul tribe here on YouTube, and stay tuned for the next video in this series and more videos on faith and relationship content to come. All right, that's it, friends. I love you. God loves you more, and I will see you in the next one.